There was a man that you may know of named Thomas Edison. Did you know that it took Thomas Edison nearly 3,000 tries to find the filament that could give us light? He kept going through over 2,000 light bulbs until he finally had his breakthrough moment. That could not have been easy. All of the disappointment, having to start over, and then feeling like he could never get it right. But he stuck with it to reach his goal so that all of us could see better in the dark. Because of Thomas Edison and because he was so determined, he changed how we live our lives every single day. We are going to be learning in our next series about determination. Determination is defined as deciding that it is worth finishing what you started. Part of our lives are going to be hard. Not being able to see our families is hard. Staying away from our friends is hard. Not being able to play on our favorite sports team right now is very hard. And staying home with all of your brothers and sisters all of the time can be very hard. But we are not going to give up. In this series, we are going to learn to keep going even when it seems impossible, because we know that God helps us keep going. He has a plan for us. Even if we don't quite understand everything that's going on around us, we know that He gives us power and strength to keep going. Hey everyone, it's Smalls
and Tarzan. Welcome back. Things are looking like they're gonna get a little sticky for the next month.
Sometimes we find ourselves in sticky situations from time to time. And when we feel like we're stuck, we need to find a way to get out of it. We need to find a way to keep going. And that is determination. That word reminds me of God sightings because God gives us determination when life gets tough. We didn't do our God sightings last week, I know, but we're determined to do them again this week. And we're going to come back with a bang by inviting Reverend Mark. So, Rev Mark, when's the time where you've seen God through determination?
I've seen God through determination in a number of different ways because people work so hard at our church. So there have been people who have been putting on a fundraiser and they didn't know whether people would come or not, but they were determined to make it a success. And I've people who are sick who have been determined to see their relatives, and so they've rallied to be able to do that. So sometimes it's a sad time, sometimes it's a happy time, but determination can show you where God is too.
What makes you feel like giving up? When it's hard to get started, and maybe it just takes too much time, and maybe it's too much repetition, and maybe there's some discomfort. Maybe you're having to say no to too many things that you want to say yes to. Sometimes you just want to say, enough. It's not worth it. I give up. But when you choose to stick it out, to put in the time, and the repetition, the discomfort, and the focus, you find that it starts getting easier, that you start to gain momentum. You can see the goal line ahead, and you get excited as you see the results of your hard work.
The only person who's responsible for your actions is you, and you need to know that you have the potential in you to do anything. It's up to you so that you can use that potential. No one can live up to your potential but you, and it takes determination.
We all need help sometimes, when things get really hard. There are plenty of places to turn to if you need help. There's your parents, there's teachers, ministers, and God. When you need an extra boost of confidence, ask God for help.
And when you're determined, reaching for your potential, we're all living loud.
Speaking of living loud, let's get up for our first song. Of Christmas, Lent, and Easter, we've been learning all about Jesus' life. And last week, we learned about how even after Jesus had died and gone to heaven, the Holy Spirit was still doing incredible things. Now, in our story from last week, there seemed to be a lot of confusion going on. People were speaking different languages, people were hiding, there was a storm. No one seemed to have really known what was going on. Didn't Jesus leave them a plan before he left? He did. Don't worry. But, just like us, the disciples got into a sticky situation and lost sight of what they were supposed to do. Before Jesus went to heaven, he met the disciples on a mountain, and he told them that they were to go across the entire world and tell everyone that God loved them. Seems simple enough. But at the time, people weren't ready to hear about Jesus. They had heard a lot of untrue things about him, and his followers were being bullied. They were called names, they weren't allowed to go to certain places, they were thrown in jail. In some places, Jesus' followers had to hide in caves out in the wilderness. They must have felt like they were in a really sticky situation. Like there was no plan to get them out of it. All they wanted to do was tell people how much God loved them. But they were determined, so determined, that over the next hundreds of years, they eventually won over kings, queens, emperors, generals, and made it so that they didn't have to live in fear anymore. I'm sure right now there's a lot of you that are unsure. It seems like there's no plan, but be determined. You are so much stronger than you know, and that strength is already in you. If you need help finding that strength, you can ask God to give you a little extra boost to get you.
The Bible, it's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. And now for an amazing story, inspired by the books of Matthew, Luke, and Acts.
When Jesus returned to life, roller coasters hadn't been invented yet. But as far as his friends were concerned, they might as well have been living on one wild coaster ride. Peter and Matthew might have gone over the whole story one more time as they walked the dusty roads from Galilee back towards Jerusalem.
Remember how it started? Jesus does all these miracles, thousands of people gathered to listen to him.
And we hear God's voice saying, "This is my son, and I love him."
But then he gets all those threats from the religious leaders.
And he ignores them all and raises Lazarus to life.
That lousy Judas betrays him,
The religious leaders arrest him,
and I run away like a fool.
and Jesus is killed.
But he comes back to life.
And now we get to hang out with him.
I think he's got big plans. Did you hear how he told me at the lake to take care of his followers?
And what he said to us all on the mountain in Galilee.
About making new disciples?
Yeah. So you must go and make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Teach them to obey everything I have commanded you, and you can be sure that I am always with you to the very end. Big job.
How do you remember all this stuff?
I record it.
You should write a book sometime.
I'm still not so sure about the Holy Spirit part.
Same.
But Jesus is here with us now. We can do anything while he stays with us.
Forever!
Ahead, Peter and Matthew and the other disciples could see Jerusalem in the distance, the temple rising above the other buildings.
He said to meet him back in Jerusalem.
For the Feast of Pentecost, probably.
That would be the perfect time for him to do something big. If he wants followers in all nations, that must mean we take over Israel first, right?
I don't know about the takeover part.
As Jesus' friends returned to Jerusalem, Jesus led them to a hill outside the city near Bethany.
Nice view of the city from here.
I bet he's finally gonna give us all the big plan now.
He already did. Make disciples of all nations.
Yeah, but how? Is he gonna gather 50,000 people at Pentecost? Or maybe he'll take us all with him on an epic road trip?
He probably wouldn't have brought us all up here if he didn't have something big to say.
Sure enough, as they ate a meal on the side of the hill, Jesus told them,
"Do not leave Jerusalem. Wait for the gift my Father promised. In a few days, you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit."
There's the Holy Spirit thing again.
Peter couldn't take it anymore. He had to ask,
Lord, are you gonna give the kingdom back to Israel now?
Everyone stopped talking, then looked to Peter, then to Jesus, who shook his head.
You should not be concerned about times or dates. The Father has set them by his own authority. But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you. Then you will tell people about me in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria. And you will even tell other people about me from one end of the earth to the other.
The disciples exchanged glances.
Okay, you did say the all nations part already, but where will you be?
And please, can you explain how the Holy Spirit's going to help us?
As Jesus smiled at his friends, he lifted his hands and spoke a blessing over them.
He's not answering the question.
As Jesus was speaking, something incredible happened. Slowly, he began to rise into the air.
He's standing in the air. How is he standing in the air?
Jesus' friends stared, mouths open. Soon, A cloud hid him from view, but they continued to gape.
Men of Galilee.
The disciples blinked and finally looked down to discover two tall men dressed in white standing right beside them.
Why do you stand here looking at the sky? Jesus has been taken away from you into heaven.
But he will come back in the same way you saw him go.
Come back? Come back when?
But the men in white were gone.
He did say, don't be concerned about times or dates.
But he just gave us the biggest job ever. Tell everyone in the whole world about him? There's gotta be a plan.
The Holy Spirit. I think the Holy Spirit is the plan.
But we don't know what the Holy Spirit is.
Jesus said to wait in Jerusalem.
So, wait. That's the plan?
That's the plan for now.
Jesus gave his followers what seemed to be an impossible job: share the story of Jesus and his love for every nation across the entire world. But soon, he gave them everything they needed to not only start the job, but keep going.
So, a couple weeks ago, I made Tarzan dance. And let's be honest, we all had a really good laugh about it.
But I was determined that what goes around comes around. And this week, so that we can see determination in action, we're going to watch Smalls muster all her determination, and she has to shoot a basketball into a hoop. And not a little hoop, a 10-foot hoop. Once. Ready, Smalls?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Yay! You got frustrated, but you asked for help and you reached your goal.
Okay, I think it's unfair that I'm the only one out of breath. So let's all stand up and sing another song. Don't forget to keep an eye out for God sightings. Look for people who do what's right, no matter how hard things may get. Maybe it's your mom or dad, a frontline worker that you know, or someone who's all alone, but is keeping their spirits up.
We're so glad you stuck around and hope to see you all next week.
Bye!